Okay, so please confirm that you can see my screen, please. You could drop a message in the chat that you can see my screen, and I'll know. Oh, but if anyone could just please confirm that my screen is up and that I'm audible. Okay, yes, I get it. Yes. All right. So good evening, everybody.
I can see your point. I can hear you clearly.
All right. All right. Thank you. Okay. So good evening once again. Welcome to today's session. Today I'll be talking about building actionable and interactive reports with good user experience in Power BI. Now, this is intended to be I believe it's 2 days. So we're going to meet today and we're going to meet tomorrow for 2 hours each. And over this over the next 2 days, we're going to cover building reports in Power BI. Okay, so who am I? I've been introduced. My name is Bolaji Olatunde. I'm a data and BI analyst, Power BI developer. Now, I intentionally added my, let's say, academic education in the sense that a lot of things I'm talking about today, I don't want you to think that, oh, maybe because I am a graphics designer or I am a creative, that these things come easier to me. No, I study economics. I don't think we do anything graphics design related in economics. So the point is, a lot of things that we're going to be talking about today, anybody can do it. So if you want to connect with me, I'm active on Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can see some of the stuff I've done on my website. So what are we going to be talking about today? So first off, we will have a bit of introduction, get to know each other a bit and have a feel of our experiences with building dashboards. And I see Olivia says she studied economics too. Great. So we'll have a bit of introduction. Then we'll look at what is a report or what's a dashboard, try and be on the same page on what we mean by a dashboard or report in this context. Then we look at, okay, what's the purpose of a dashboard? And then we would also go into looking at a dashboard design process, right? And I call these things to consider because it's not going to be a rigid list of things that you have to go through, when you're designing a dashboard. But there are things that, when you have at the back of your mind when you're designing the dashboard, it increases the chances of you designing a user-focused dashboard, that answers, key business questions, right? And so after that, we are going to look at some how-tos in Power BI. So, why we talk about the theory, why we talk about the design, this, that, do that, get some, hands-on time and we'll build some things in Power BI, right? So we have the hands-on session and then we're going to have a Q&A session. Now, because it's split into 2 days, today we're going to be doing a lot of talking, a lot of seeing, a lot of interaction. You guys will give me some of what you guys have done, what you think. And then tomorrow, same time, we are now going to go into Power BI and build stuff, right? So today, let's just get a feel about what it is that we should consider when building, a Power BI report. Now, before we proceed, if you could just drop in the chat, is there anyone that has never created a dashboard or a report before? Or let me put it the other way. If you've ever created a dashboard or a report, just drop a message in the chat that yes, I have, or no, I have not. Right? I want to see if we've ever attempted creating a dashboard or a report. Okay, so just 30 seconds, drop a message in chat. Yes, I have. No, I have not. I can see Emmanuel has. Since it's only Emmanuel out of 104 participants. Okay. So let's assume, right? Let's assume majority of us have attempted to create a report. So Priscilla has, Matthew has, right? Now, if you've attempted to create a report, what's the biggest struggle that you've ever faced while creating a report? Sometimes if you think about it, right? Yeah, at least if I think about it, when I started to create reports and create dashboards, I think one of the biggest challenges I had was where do I start? Right. So what do I even do? You've asked me to create a report. You've given me this Excel sheet that contains data, and then you say, oh, go and create a report. So my own biggest problem was, where do I start? Where do I start? Okay, so Matthew said he has created dashboards. What I said dashboard is not important. That's why I stopped. Okay, that's fine. So the biggest problem I had while creating, dashboards or reports was, what do I even do? Where do I start? And so what I'm going to try to do over the next few minutes is to kind of give us some outlines, right, to help you guide you to start creating a dashboard, right, and actually create something that makes sense. Now, I would just like to give credit. So a lot of things I'm going to be talking about today, I have picked up from very, very experienced, sorry, very experienced Power BI developers, right? And I've linked up three very, very interesting sessions that cover, a lot of very interesting things around creating the dashboard in Power BI. The slides will be made available after the session, so you don't have to worry. So just wanted to do that. And now let's get into it. So what is a dashboard, or what is a report, right? And what is the purpose of a report? Now, when we talk about reports, right, in the Power BI space, as a Power BI terminology, there's something called a report, which is, that your Power BI desktop. When you click on it, you open it up, and you have a blank canvas in your front, and you're designing stuff. As a Power BI terminology, right, that's a report. And then the dashboard is another thing that you have on the Power BI service, and that. But for the purpose of today's session, we are going to look at a report and a dashboard as the same thing, right? We're going to look at a report and a dashboard as the same thing because, in the report, right, of Power BI, we create, dashboards. Okay, so I'm going to be using report, dashboard interchangeably to mean the same thing, but in certain contexts, they may not mean the same thing. So what is it? What is a report, and what is the purpose of a report? So I picked up a few definitions from the internet. One of such definitions was, there's a book called The Big Book of Dashboards, right? Written by three interesting authors. I forget the name now. Okay, Steve Wexler, Andy Cotgrave, and one other person. And in their book, they talked about, you know, if you ask different people what a dashboard is, everybody's going to give you their own understanding or their own perspective of what a dashboard is. But they kind of narrowed the definition of a dashboard for the context of their book into this. A dashboard is a visual display of data used to monitor conditions and or facilitate understanding. I want you to pay attention to some keywords in this. One is what? It's a visual display of data. That's one. And it does something: monitor and facilitate understanding. Right. So those are very key things you should understand. A dashboard displays data for a purpose. In this case, they said monitor conditions or facilitate understanding. I also went to the Microsoft Power BI website. I mean, if you're talking about Power BI, let's see what Microsoft has to say about what a dashboard is. And Microsoft says on their website, it says a data dashboard is a tool many businesses use to track, analyze, and display data, usually to gain insight into the overall well-being of an organization, department, or a specific process. So what do we see here again? It's a tool. That's one. Now, when you say something is a tool, what does that mean? It means you can use it for good, bad, you can use it rightly, you can use it wrongly. But as a dashboard being a tool, what's that tool used to do? To track, to analyze, to display data. Why? So we can gain insights into the overall well-being of an organization, a department, or a specific process. Now, if we were to draw out the key things from these two definitions of what a dashboard is, certain things come to mind, and I kind of just say, okay, let's have our own definition of what a dashboard, drawing from these two definitions. And I've just said a dashboard is a deliberate collection of charts and data visualizations intended to aid a decision-making process or to facilitate understanding of a situation, right? So deliberate is one keyword there, which means that a dashboard should not just magically appear. You decide what the dashboard is going to be and is going to be about. That's one. Two, it includes charts, it includes data visualizations, right? Visualization of data, and it has a purpose to facilitate. In this case, I said either to aid someone making a decision or to facilitate understanding a situation, a trend, the health of the business, whatever it is. So two key things that you should know. One is that a dashboard is deliberately created, right? You have to be intentional about what it is. And two, it must have a purpose, right? You cannot just create a dashboard for the sake of designing something that looks pretty. No, it usually should have a purpose, and most times either a business focused purpose, or the purpose of educating the public about something, or the purpose of understanding, trends, patterns, gaining insights, and all of that good stuff. Right. So that's the context in which we're going to be defining a dashboard. And a lot of things that we're going to be talking about next is going to be geared towards that definition. Now, next, let's look at the report design process. Right. Now, the title of the session says what? Building actionable and interactive reports with good user experience. The next question is now, how do we go about creating that report, right? How do we go about designing that report? And I like to think about it in two distinct phases, right? Although there are a lot of things that go into building the report, but in my own perspective, if you like categorize everything that you have to do, I like to break it down into two phases. That's why I call them typical phases in the design process. The first phase is what I group as the what to show, right? So when you're about to design, when you're about to go, okay, I don't know. Someone says there's no audio from this end. Please,
It's
could you
from
confirm if I'm
it's from my
still on?
head. It's from my head. From my
Okay, all right, thank you. So the first phase in the design process is what I like to call the what to show. So this is one phase, and then the second phase is the how to show, right? So what should I show on this dashboard, and two, how should I show it? Now, the last two sessions that was taken by Nonso, I'm very sure, very beautiful session. We have covered a lot of things about, designing dashboard, designing visuals, that has discussed with us, carry over to some of the things that we're going to be talking about here. So, what to show? The what to show basically is that phase in the design process where you are trying to understand what the focus of the report is and how the required data can be presented, right? So in this phase, you're still just trying to say, okay, someone has reached out to you to say, hey, Muba, I would like you to look at this data set. We've been having a bit of recurring calls from our customers. They're complaining about XYZ. Could you take a look at it and help me find out what's wrong, right? Then the next thing you go is, oh, you want me to find out why we are having, frequent calls from our customers about a particular product. Oh, you begin to ask questions. I'm going to design a dashboard, but I need to know what's the focus of that dashboard going to be. What are the things that I need? What are the questions that I need to ask? What are the questions that I need to answer in order to help me understand why our customers, are frequently calling back. So this phase is the it's to show phase. It's where you're just trying to get, what am I going to show, what is going to be needed, and all of those things, right? And then the how to show phase. This is the phase where you've after you've defined what it is that you want to show, what it is that you want to show, and now next thing is, oh, how am I going to go about it? What visuals am I going to use to present this? What techniques do I have at my disposal to present this data? Oh, what color am I going to use? How is the layout of my dashboard going to be? Am I going to design something for a tablet? Am I going to design something for a laptop? Is it going to be for a big screen? Am I designing for someone that is visually impaired? Do I need to use these? Do I need to use that? Here you're now talking about how it is you're going to show the information or the data or the requirement that you've gathered, right? So just again to mention, we are going to be going through a design process, right? But this design process is not sequential, meaning that if I if I say, oh, so first step we do is what? Do this, then do this, then do this, then do that. It does not mean that every time you're going to create a report, you're always going to go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And when you get to step 5, if the report does not make sense, you just say, well, Bolaji just came and said rubbish, I'm not even designing a report again. Let me go and be writing code. No, it's not a strictly sequential process, right? It's iterative, and it loops. Sometimes you go step 1, step 2, and you realize, oh, I need more information, and you go back to step 1, and you continue to, brew that process over and over again. So just have that at the back of your mind. It's not strictly sequential, it's iterative, right? So what to show? Two things are included in the what to show phase. The first thing is your research, right? Research. And the second phase is where you define. Now, what is included in the research? Like I've said, you might even already have an idea of what it is I want to say here. In the research phase, this is where you are gathering, your business requirements, the scope of your report with the audience, and how's the report going to be used. So we're talking about what is the need, right? That the report needs to answer. What is the data that I need to gather? What are the questions that my stakeholder needs answered or that my business needs answered? What decision does this dashboard or does this report need to aid or need to facilitate? The second thing is the scope. What is the area, right? Or like the broad areas or the broad questions that this report can answer, and what are the things that this report cannot answer, right? So if you're going to be creating a dashboard, if you let's say your dashboard is geared towards, like the example we said, understanding why we are getting frequent complaint calls from our customer, right? And the scope of that report could be it's going to provide enough information for you to understand how frequent the calls are coming in, what the call, any attempts at resolving them, for example, and maybe a few other things, right? But there will be things that report or that dashboard is not going to talk about. For example, it's not going to tell, it may not tell me what's the sales value is of what it is they're complaining about. It might not, right? But your report is always going to have a scope. And it's always good to define the scope of that report at the early stage of the report. So you know that, okay, if I have designed this report, and this is the requirement I've gathered, and this is the scope of my report, for as long as the report I've designed fits within that scope and answers all of those business requirements, you've designed a fairly good report, right? And you don't need to bug your head about, oh, is this good or is this not good? So that's it about the scope. The next thing is you want to understand your audience or, your report consumers. In the context of a business, the audience of a report or the consumers of a report might be your business managers, right? Or your line manager or the CEO or the head of department, right? So you need to understand these guys. And how do you need to understand? What are the things that you need to understand about them? You want to understand, oh, if I'm going to be designing a report or a dashboard for a CEO, for example, as a CEO that I'm managing a large company located in, let's say, across the world, right? Or across Nigeria, we have different branches everywhere. The kind of information you want to present to a CEO is different from the kind of information you're going to present to the head of the sales rep team. Because as a CEO, I want to understand, let's say, the overall health of my business. You get? I want to see at a very high level, how is the business performing? But for the head of the sales rep team, the guy just wants to make sure that all the sales rep are not fucking him up. Apologies for the word. But all the sales rep are doing, doing fine. You don't have one that is slacking on his targets or something like that now makes him look bad or stuff like that. So understanding who is going to use the report helps you better design a report that fits their need. And one thing you should also know is that sometimes a report may not be able to fit may not be able to fit every audience, right? It's very hard for you to design one report that would be as useful as it is to the CEO, that will be useful to the CEO and be equally useful to someone like the head of the department or the head of the sales rep team as well, like I said, right? So understand the audience of your report, understand your report consumers, right? To help you properly design a report. And then when I talk about the usage of the report, usage basically means how these guys are going to, or these stakeholders are going to interact, with the report. In Power BI, for example, now, not even for example, that's the tool we are discussing. In Power BI, when you design a report, you have a couple of ways of sharing that report. As a very, very bad example, I can send the PBIX file of the reports to someone else, right? That is one way of consuming that report, even though it's bad. Well, just bear with me. That's one way. Another way is I prepare the report, I publish it to Power BI service, and then I add um, my stakeholders or my line manager to say, okay, the report has been prepared. You can view the report now on Power BI service. They log in. That's one way, and they view the report. Another way could be, you set up maybe email subscriptions where a PDF copy of the report is sent to them maybe at the start of every week to give them a report of last week, for example. Or the report is going to be used on mobile, right? The report could be used on mobile where if you're designing a report for someone that is going to be at the front line of sales, for example, and they just need something that they can just pick up their phone, check and say, oh, I want to understand this customer. I filter to this customer. I want to see, oh, when was the last time you bought with us, this and that, so that I can quickly have information to talk about with that customer, right? So each of those scenarios I've just described are different ways in which a report or a dashboard created in Power BI can be used. Now, if the primary way a report is going to be consumed is by getting email PDFs, right? Snapshot of the report that you have on the service, a PDF is sent. You for a report that it's going to be sent out as a PDF, right? You don't want to include interactivity, right? You don't want to have a slicer in the report because, I mean, how do I interact with it? You can't, right? You can't interact with the PDF. Same way, if you're going to be designing a report that's going to be consumed heavily on the mobile, you cannot design something with very, very extremely large fonts because you won't even have enough space for it. So how the report is going to be consumed, right, really, really affects what choices you're going to make along your report design process. So that's the research, right? This phase is you just trying to understand very, very, very clearly what it is that this report should entail, what it is that this report should cover. And so once you've done the research, you've gotten all the information that you need, the technical requirement, your business requirement, the scope, who's going to use it, how they're going to use it. Next phase is where you now define. So in this definition stage, you're basically taking everything that you've researched and just outlining it now in a much more clearer way to serve as a blueprint for your design going forward, right? So when you've got your business requirement, you're gonna say, oh, I'm designing a report that is supposed to help my sales managers understand how their sales reps are doing, understand which sales rep is lagging, and know when to reach out to a sales rep. Or, oh, I'm designing a report now that is supposed to help the HR manager understand the health of the employees, understand who is getting paid less, understand who is not enjoying their work, like that. You summarize what you're going to be consumer, right? You can define a what's called a persona, right? To say, okay, the person that's consuming the report, this is a typical description of that person, right? And then you can design, you can also define, oh, since I want to show, since I want to be able to give my sales manager the information on how a sales rep is performing, I'm probably going to need a way to show a visual of the sales rep and the individual performance over certain metrics. You're just basically doing what? Summarizing what you've gotten from your research, from your interaction with your business stakeholders, from your reports, consumers, and then putting it into a very succinct, description that would now further guide your report design or your dashboard design as you go along. So that's it, right? That's the what to show phase. And I just put up a couple of questions to consider when you're looking at this phase. What's the goal or the objective of the report? Like we discussed, what's the needed information to be communicated? What do I need to put on the dashboard, right? That is going to help achieve the good, the objective of the report, or that's going to help answer that pressing business question. What won't the report cover? What's the scope of the report? Right? What are the questions that will not be on this report? You are not going to answer on this report. Who is the audience or the assumed audience? So for some of us that we are not yet creating reports for businesses, we are just doing passion projects, we are doing personal projects put up on our portfolio. You can assume an audience for your report, so just to help you guide creating something that makes sense, right? So who is the audience or the assumed audience of the report? Who is going to use the report? Does the report's user have any preferences, right? Because there's this common theme that finance teams always like their tables. Anybody that is in finance, everybody's just if you prepare a dashboard for a finance person, you put your line chart, bar chart, donut chart, everything, just the chart, chart, chart. Before you know it, you just say, "Hey, can I have a table that shows me this?" So when you understand those user preferences, right? If I'm designing something for someone that loves to see things in tables because it helps them understand, there's no need me trying to come on, I've read this I've read book on data visualization. We collect this chart like that's not the preference of the report user, right? That's not the preference of the consumer. And your job as a report designer is to design something that helps them, understand the data, understand and gain their insight, right? So understand the user preferences. This is not an exhaustive list of questions, right? But just something to get you thinking about what is included in this stage. So that's the what's to show phase, right? You research, you define, summarize, and okay, this is my blueprint of where I'm going. So I'll stop there for now. If there are any questions, drop it in the chat of everything we've discussed so far. If you have, something that did not make sense or you have something you want to chime in, you can just drop it in the chat. If there are no questions for now, you can just type go ahead in the chat and, I will proceed. So 30 seconds. If you have any questions, drop it in the chat. If not, if you're following through, just type go ahead and I will proceed. Okay, so I mean, if I don't get any message, it means no one is following through, and I'm just speaking. Please confirm I'm still on the call, so I'm
Yeah,
sure
I
that.
think there is a message. You can go ahead.
All right. Okay, so I've gotten a few messages. Go ahead and proceed. Cool. Okay, so let's move on to the next phase. We've done the what's to show. Now, how do we show what it is that we've defined, right? How to show the data in order to meet this business requirement. Now, again, there's not going to be an exhaustive list of things included in what to show, but I mean, the how to show, but are things that, to give you an idea of what to think about. When you design in the what to show phase, I have first wireframe, right? What's wireframe? Wireframing is what you are basically designing a, a structure, and put it that way, a structure for the report you're going to design. If an architect is going to build a house, I don't think the first, if you know, if you even want to build a house, I don't think the first thing you do when you're building a house is to go to the land, cut the grass, and start laying blocks. No, the first thing is what you get an architect to come and say, oh, I want to build a house, design, what the house will look like. So we can take that concept and bring it into Power BI report creation, wireframing. This is a concept that is also common among people that design apps, right? I don't know whether if you're conversant with these UI UX designers and product designers. Before you design an app, you design some wireframes, you design some user flow and all of those things. I don't know their terminologies, but basically you design a structure before you go into building the actual thing. So one of the things that you take into consideration when you're deciding how to show the data is wireframing. Next one, after you wireframed, you've got your structure, then you create, right? You start to create your visuals. You start to create the what's it called now? The visuals, the icons, and all those things. Then you add design elements. Yes, someone said wireframing and prototypes. That's very correct. So you add your design elements, icons, colors, all of those things. Then you test it, right? You design something, you give your report user, say, hey, I've taken your requirement, I've given you, a version 0.1, what it is I think you want. Test it, give me your feedback. Does it meet your needs? Is there something that doesn't make sense? And then once you've tested, take those feedback and you improve your report, and then you continue the process, right? So this is a process, not the process of deciding the how to show. Wireframe, create, add design elements, test, get user feedback, and improve. Let's go to the first point, which is wireframing. In the wireframing stage, we are trying to do what? Decide what the structure of our report is going to be, or what is going to be the logical presentation of the data, right? And a couple of things to to consider when we are designing the wireframe, right? Let me first start by saying what's the wireframe, right? It's that structure. The wireframe is we can call it the backbone of your report in terms of the design and the presentation of your data. It's in the wireframing stage that you are going to decide, oh, so I want to have something that talks about the profit, cost, and let's say revenue by sales rep. It's in your wireframing stage that you're going to know, should I put that information at the top, at the bottom, at the left, at the right? It's in your wireframing stage you're going to know, oh, am I going to keep my key metrics at the top or at the left? It's in your wireframing stage you're going to know, am I going to need 2 pages, 3 pages to show my data? It's in your wireframing stage you're going to know, oh, am I going to need a filter panel or do I not need a filter panel? Oh, what is the design I'm going to go for since the person that is going to use this report is going to be using it on mobile, right? So it's in the wireframing stage, you decide all of those things. Now, a couple of things to consider, right, is the dashboard layout. right? That's basically what I'm talking about in the wireframe, layout of your dashboard. What's it going to look like? How are things going to be arranged, right? And so the first point that I want to point out is design to fit the intended medium of use. Like I said, if it's going to be used on a big screen, don't want to use small fonts, right, in a big screen, or don't go and make the information scattered anyhow. No, design to fit the intended medium of use. Next point is design to a grid system. Now, this point, like, it's such a golden point that if you can always design to a grid system, there's almost 100% chance that you've never designed something that looks wrong. And what's a grid system? A grid system, I'm going to show an image later on of what a grid system looks like. But a grid system basically is, when you have your blank report canvas, right? 16 by 9 in the aspect ratio, very long, but not too tall. And designing to a grid system is you just basically taking up that wide canvas and then cutting it into smaller rectangles and then saying, oh, this section in my upper rectangle is going to be where I'm going to put my report title. Oh, this section at the top is where I'm going to put my key metrics. Oh, this small area here is where I'm going to put any information that relates to profits. And in this small area here, I'm going to put anything that relates to geography, right? Designing to a grid. Within your grid, right? Let me just see if I can. Yes. So it's like saying I take everywhere like this now, and then I now start dividing. Oh, this portion is going to be my report title. Then the next portion is going to be my big numbers, and then I want to use this small box here to show profit, and then this other box here is going to show sales rep performance, and then at the bottom here I'm going to include a footnote, things like that. That's a grid system. Almost all the time, if you design to a grid, you will almost not design something that looks bad. And you look at a couple of reports and see where that concept of designing to a grid, has been put to good use. Right. Okay. So next is let the information flow from general to specific. Now, when I say let the information flow from general to specific, or as when you're designing your report and you've ascertained what your what the focus of the report should be, right? Or what the goal of that report is going to be. There are going to be series of questions, right? That lead up to meeting that intended need of that report. There will be series of questions. And some of those questions are some of those answers are going to go from very high level answers with data to very specific answers with data. I'll give you an example. Let's say the report objective is, oh, we want to understand what the sales performance of the company is. That's the report objective. Give me a dashboard that helps me understand the sales performance of my organization. Now, take that objective, the sales performance of my organization. My key metric there is going to be what? Sales, right? So I can start off my report by talking about something or creating something that gives me, oh, so what's the sales value of the company over this period of time? Okay, it is 3 million naira. Oh, is it good? Is it bad? Oh, yeah, it's good. Compared to last year, the sales value is 20% more than last. Oh, that's nice. So why is it 20% higher? What happened? So it was this product that contributed to that 20% increase. Oh, wow, this product contributed. Oh, so why did this product sell more than this? Well, we had customers coming from this region, and they were the ones that bought it. Wow. Oh, this customer. So what's specific about those customers? We are going from this is sales value and to, oh, this is why these guys are buying this product and this is why it's going, right? So when you're designing a report, you don't want to have that very specific information at the forefront of your dashboard and then you're not going to general. No, you want to, like, it's like telling a story, right? You start from something very broad and then you start to bring out, you start to juice it out, and get to specific details, right? That feed into or that describe why that general information, that general data is the way it is. So let the information flow from in your dashboard from general to specific. Next thing is prioritize important information at the top left and details right at the bottom right. This kind of feeds into the previous point of the general to specific flow of information. Now, psychology or user experience research has helped us understand that we tend to read information in a certain way. So the research says that we read information this way. So we tend to read information in a zigzag pattern. So we start from the top left, and then we read like this, and then we come back, and then we read like this, and then we come back, and then read like this, and then we come back, and then read like this. Now, if you follow that pattern, it means that the first thing you are going to see is going to be in the top left, and the last thing you're going to see is going to be in the bottom right. Some research say, oh, we don't read in zigzag pattern this way. We read in this pattern. So we start from the top, we come down, and then we go up, and then we come down again, and we go up, and then we come down, and then we go up, and then we come down. Either way, the first thing you're going to see is going to be in the top left, and the last thing you're going to read is going to be in the bottom right. So if there is a very key information that you want your report user to see, it's best to put that key information at the top so that when they open the report, that's where their eye goes, and they see that very important information. And if you have something that you want to use to provide context or to explain what it is that is there, you try to put that information towards the bottom right, of your report. So that's it about the layout, right? That's about layout. So general specific important information at the top left and details and make appropriate chart choices, right? Now, the data storytelling session should have given you some insight into some of these things. If you're going to be presenting information about trend, for example, don't present January to December data in a pie chart. Where's the trend, right? Don't present data about categories in a funnel chart. That's not what it's supposed to be. It's not going to show that trend that you're trying to present, right? So for every specific data, for every specific information that you're trying to present, make the appropriate chart choice, right, to present that data. And then lastly, coherence. Coherence, as subtle as it might be, is kind of what ties the different elements of your dashboard together, right? If I cannot fit, if you prepare reports and you cannot fit in why this chart is connected to this chart on the same dashboard, there is no coherence, right, in your report. It's supposed, like, right from data storytelling. Okay, I'll come to the question. It's supposed to be a story, basically, right? Each chart is supposed to complement in order to fit one, what's it called? In order to fit one particular report objective. So as you're going to put information on your chart, try to aim for a coherent presentation information, and you reach the point where you can start thinking about these things, because you are not going to be constrained about the fact that I've already spent 3 hours designing this dashboard, but this thing is not looking like this. Here I will now come and start again after 3 hours. But if you're still in the framing phase, right, there's a very low chance that you will not feel that reluctance to want to start again, because you're still designing, right? Okay. So I see a question that says, just, I'm slightly confused about the important information and details. Okay. The important information and details is almost like this point of flow, information flow from general to specific. Maybe I should have not used important information and details. Maybe I should have used summary information and details. Maybe that's a much more better term to use. But the point is, we are going to read information in a particular pattern as human beings, right? Let us take advantage of the natural way it is that we read information and show you things, that align with that pattern. So replace important with summary, right? Replace important with summary. I don't need to first, I should not show you sales by person in the top. I'm now showing you how you get. That's the point, right? Keep the general information towards the top left, and then the more specific. So the summary there, and then more details about the breakdown about that information, keep it towards the bottom right. So that's the point. I hope it's clear now. So that's the wireframing, stage. And I just want to show a couple of one or two examples, right? Basically, one or two examples that from something I've done, right? So that you see that these things are not rocket science. I'm a graphic designer, GKT, right? I've only been in the space for how many years now? Maybe two, maybe 2.5, I think. So I'll show you one of my reports that I created. This was a hotel revenue management report, right? It was part of the data challenge and that, but forget that for now. It's a report. Now, while I was creating this report, one of the things that I did, was figuring out how it is that I wanted to present information. And I'll show you some images from that process, right? This was one of them, right? This was one of them. And in this day, I just said, okay, I wanted to have maybe a logo here, the report title here, and a canvas to work with. This is frame one. And then, in addition to that, I wanted to have a page that I was going to break up like this, right, to show some information in this angle here, have some key KPIs here, a grid here, and a grid here. Now, you see the point about my designing to grid system. This area in the grid is dedicated towards one thing. Another area in this grid is going to be dedicated towards another thing. And this area is in the grid is going to be dedicated towards something. So when you chop off, your big report canvas into those small bits and figure out what you want to put in each section, it makes it easier, right, to create that report. And then another phase as well is this one now is an exact replica of the final, is the page that I seen on the final one, right? So what did I do? I said, okay, oh, I wanted to have icons here at the left, have something here, have a page, this page, with page, this page, and then divide it up like this. And I wanted to have metrics here. If you look at this layout and what's here, it's quite similar, right? Although here I have 3 icons. In the final version, I have just 1 icon. It's part of the process. But here it helps you start to think about how it is that you want to present information. Now, this wireframing for this example is looking too clean, right? It's looking too clean. Yes, I agree. But it doesn't have to be this clean in the wireframing phase. So I'm going to show another example, right? This was also another report. So this report was for one, it was for a calendars where and they had specific sections of questions that they wanted us to answer, right? So, and each of those questions were broken down into sections. So we had section B, section C, section D, and then each section had a set of questions that needed to be answered. And so in my final output, I broke each page of my report section, right? And then, in my opinion, it fitted answering those questions better. And this was another page as well, right? Section C aspect that also answered those questions. And let's look at the wireframing process while I was creating this report. That's it. It's not pretty because it's not about the design. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that you can see it properly, right? So you can see it properly. Now look at this, right? Look at this. This is the first page. What did I do here? This is plain pen and paper, right? This is plain pen and paper. And I've just done what? Oh, I want to have a report title, and then I want to have something here, something here, something here, a chart, a number, and a chart, a number, and a chart, a number and a chart. But that's one page. Then I wanted another page. I wanted another page. This is my own wireframing for this particular report, and it works, right? Because it gives you a structure to start to think about is that you want to present, right? So this is one example, right? This is one example. Let me see if I still have one more example. Another example, yeah, is this one, right? This was a WhatsApp themed report. It's looking pretty, but again, it had its own wireframing stage. Now I couldn't get the specific I couldn't get a specific app that I used to do this back then because I knew it was a pen and paper. But this was one of the elements that I created while deciding how it is that I wanted to fit information in the report. It may not exactly be what it is that you're going to have in the end, but it gives you a starting point to think about how it is you want to arrange, the information. So let me see if you have any questions. So someone says, I says, does this mean I have to go and start doing UI UX to better understand wireframing? Absolutely not, right? You don't have to go and start doing UI UX to understand wireframing. You don't have, when I say have, you say have to means that it's necessary. No, it's not. But if you can take a few tips from what it is that they do, right, you can apply some of those concepts when you're creating your reports. Because what's the whole essence of user interface and user experience? Anything that involves a user, right? Reporting involves a user. Do you get? Reporting involves a user. So there are things from that field, right, that you can apply to what it is that we're doing here. But do you have to? Maybe not, but it will be good to pick up, one or two things from them. So that's it about wireframing, right? That's it about wireframing. We are 1 hour in. I'm going to ask again. If you have any questions, just drop it in the chat, and I would always try to pick up the questions as we move along. So that's wireframing. Haya says they don't tell us this when they're advertising masterclass sessions.
So,
I won't mention anything about that.
please, if you have question, I think it's 1 hour already, so we have 5 minutes to put in question. If you have anything you need to do, okay. Yeah, this will be answered to, I think, next week. We have a session on this next week that will be covering about publishing reports on apps. So, Adejoke, that will be answered next week in next week class, which will be our final class. Okay.
I agree, Matthew. I agree. I agree.
It's called master class for a reason. PJ wants to ask questions, so you have the mic, PJ. You can speak. We have 5 minutes for them. So.
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Really appreciate it. I'm not actually asking on what we are doing right now. I don't know if you allow me to ask the question. That's on data validation. I'm trying to find under my numerical that's the price, like the price column. I have I have
sorry for cutting you to PJ. Please, for that question, you can forward it to me later after the class. It doesn't tally with what you're doing in the class, so it's a diverse, structure there. So you can forward it to me through a message. Thank you.
Okay, on
Matthew, you can speak.
Good evening, Mr. Good evening, Mr. Bolaji. Well, let me say I have small experience in US. So, like, is it can I be using it? And second question is that most of the people I follow on Twitter, they say dashboard is not important. Is it important or is not important? That is my question.
Okay. All right. So I'll answer your first question. You have experience with UI UX, right? Can you apply the concepts 100%? Because again, like I said, what's the full meaning of UI UX? User interface, user experience. So which means anything that has a user, you can apply the concept to it. We are creating a report. I'm not the one that is going, I'm not creating the report for the developer. No, I'm creating it for someone that's going to use it. Right. So if you have knowledge about user interface and user experience design, 100% you can apply it to this place. Now, the other question is dashboard creation is not important. My answer to that is no, I don't think so. Dashboard creation, it's important because now that creating dashboards creating dashboards is one way of communicating the analysis that you've done, right? So you've gone there, you've gone to carry, you've gone to take a lot of data, you've gone to do your analysis, you've written your code, your ETL, the whole thing is mad. And now you want to present the results of your analysis, right? Creating the dashboard is one way of presenting those reports. So if you say it's not important, I mean, then that means you are probably suggesting that there is another way to present, your analysis or your results, right? So um, I say it's important, but it's not the only important thing. Let's put it that way. It's important, but not the only important thing.
So I think our 5 minutes is on. You can continue from there. So any other question will be for after this session. So you can continue from there, Bolaji.
Okay, thank you. All right, so yeah, let's continue. So we've talked about, what's the show, getting your business requirements, the scope of your report, the who is going to use the report, how they're going to use it, and then we've also talked about, now getting into the stage of, deciding how it is you're going to present the data to meet those requirements, right? And one of those things we talked about now is wireframing. What we say wireframing is what we are trying to decide how what's the logical presentation, what's the structure, how are things going to flow in. So wireframing is one. Next phase is create, right? If you remember the five points that I outlined. Wireframe, once you decide, you've done your wireframing now. So you've said, oh, this thing is going to be here, this is going to be here. The next thing is create. And in this point is where you start to create those data visualizations, right? Tricks on the top. Oh, I'm going to show sales by months or sales by years. All right, create a line chart, right? So in this phase, oh, I can't see my screen. Please confirm if my screen is still up.
Your screen is on. Your screen is on.
I
It's
hope it's still up. Okay. Okay. So create data visualizations. Now when you're creating data visualizations, right? We're not going to go in depth into what it is that you should consider in creating data visualizations. But I think these are three questions that you can have in mind while creating any visual within your report or within your dashboard, right? First question is, what does what does this mean? What do I mean by the question, what does this mean? Basically, I'm trying to say that let's say card visual or a line chart or a bar chart, there should be like there should be, you cannot create a bar chart that does not have a description. I just put something that looks like countries and I put on the bar, I just put some number and then you are saying 2,000, 5,000, 300,000. Can you confirm if I'm still on the call?
Yeah, you're still on call. I can see us going on. Nobody can hear you, so.
Okay, let me stop sharing for a bit. Over.
Yeah. I can hear you, but your screen is off.
Yeah, okay. So I think my network played a little one on me. Am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible, but your screen is off.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again now. MTN wants to do one or two now. Okay. Is my screen back up now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, all right, let me continue. So we are creating our visualizations, right? So some questions I think you can answer. What does this mean? So if you're going to create a visual, a card visual, a line chart, a bar chart, right? Anyone that looks at your visual should be able to understand what does this mean. If I'm saying 200,000, what does 200,000 mean? Is it total profit? If it's total profit for what? Is it 2018 January to 2019 December, right? Or if I'm looking at sales rep values for something, right? Basically, what I'm saying is let's remove as much assumption as you can when you're creating your visuals, right? Let it be easy to answer what that visual means or what that visual is supposed to communicate. The next question I think is important as well is why is this visual important, or why is this number important, or why is this metric important? This is a question that you should always try to ask, especially when you are creating card visuals, for example, what they call bands, big angry numbers, right? Those numbers that you put as a top key metrics, right? If I'm going to put sales or profit or gross margin or what number of calls or number of employees at the top, right? I'm going to put the key metric at the top of my visual. What is the importance of me seeing that our sales was 3 million? Give me more context to understand why it's important for me to know that our sales was 3 million, right? If I'm going to put, number of employees in the company is, let's say 300, for example, give me context to understand why it's important for me to know that the number of employees is 300. Is it because these 300 employees that I are seeing now compared to last month, we had 500 and 200 as Japa. You get? So, or if I'm looking at sales numbers or profits and you're telling me, we made 1 million in profits this month, is it good? Is it higher than last year? Or are we actually, even though you are seeing 1 million, 1 million is a big number, but compared to the last month, is it worse? Is it better? Right? So you should be able to communicate why this visual or why this information I'm presenting to you is important to you or to the user, right, to see. And then the last thing is what action can me seeing this information facilitates. Now, it's not going to be every visual that would have an answer to all of these questions, even though you can try to always have an answer to all of these questions. But a question like what action should this facilitate, for example, a scenario could be, the sales rep example that I was using. If I create a visual that says sales rep, and for each sales rep, I'm showing number of, let's say, deals that they closed, number of calls that they took, like potential, customer calls that they took, and the revenue that they brought in, for example. Now, if you're presenting that information to me about my sales rep, is there an action that you can trigger in the report user why they see that information? It could be, let's say I'm preparing a report for a sales manager, right, that's managing sales rep. And for the month, I've defined, let's say, a certain quota or a certain target for each of my sales rep. Would it not make sense for me to create a visual as part of my report that's showing my sales rep by, by all of these performance metrics, but also give me a very, very quick way to see who is performing well and who isn't meeting up to targets. And so that when I still see, oh, this guy is performing well, maybe I should, give him remember to give him a good review in something, or give me a performance bonus or something. Or maybe there's this guy that's been falling behind, and maybe as a sales manager, I need to give him a call and check on him. Oh, what's wrong? Are you all right? Oh, do you have some? It could be that maybe his family member died, or Nigeria has just hit him, and then it's like, whoa, I'm not even doing the sales thing again. But if the visual does not help facilitate that action, right, it reduces the effectiveness of the dashboard, right? So while you're creating your visuals, I think you should have these three questions in mind, right? Be able to understand, let the user be able to understand from a glance what this each visual means, what each information or each data you presented means. Let them understand why it's important for them to see this information, and let it help them either take an action or understand, a process, or understand the trend better, or something in that time, right? So that's one of the create phases and the questions that you should consider while you're creating your visuals. And then in the process of creating those visuals, what are some of the things that you should consider? Again, we're not going deep into how to create data visualizations, because that could be another 1 week session on its own. But a few things to consider, like we mentioned before, use the right charts, right? Don't present 300 categories on a pie chart. Don't present categorical information on a funnel chart, for example. Don't present, what else? What's the common mistake, right? Some of these other things, yeah. Try as much as possible, use the right chart that is best suited to communicate the insight that you are trying to share. That's the first thing. Second thing is add context. Add context. This add context ties right to that question of why is this important, right? Why is this important? Add context. If you're going to show me numbers, give me some context about this information. Is it good? Is it bad? Does it fall? Does it fall above average? Right? Is it meeting targets? Add context. And when you're adding context, you can, if it's percentage changes, you can show percentage changes. You want to use text, right, as much as possible. A lot of people think that, oh, because you're creating dashboard now, you just create something that is so visually appealing. You just want to drop one graphics there, make everything just a shine. You get, and then you remove text should complement, your design choices and everything. So I use text, to your own advantage to explain things. Have clear titles, right? Don't be, and then you're showing me the title of your chart is sum of profits. by month. What's the sum of profit by month? Or you have sum of sales by sales underscore rep underscore new database. What is the meaning of that? Right? Use clear titles. And if you have to use subtitles to give further context to what it is that you are presenting, right? Use subtitles, right? So what are subtitles? So you have a title for your text and you have a subtitle that's explaining, the more of the content that is going to be seen in the report. So you add context, you text to your advantage. Third point, your visuals should aid meeting the report objectives. If your report objective is to understand, oh, how are sales rep performing, there is no need for you to show me something about the HR manager in the report, because it felt like, I think it would be nice. I should throw one new chat that I just learned and just put it in the chat. And the chat does not facilitate the core objective of the core reporting needs of that report of the dashboard, right? So every visual you put in your dashboard should all contribute into meeting that report goal, like that objective of the report, or into meeting or into answering that key central business question that is guiding the report creation. Next point is it should support the user in making a decision or taking an action. I think I've talked about this over the course of this presentation. Everything that you're going to be presenting, it should help them either understand something or help them make a decision, right? If I've asked, let's say, I'll give maybe a relatable example, right? I once was creating a report for someone in the space of what do they do now? It's close to Airbnb, right? But on a lower scale. Let's put it that way. Close to Airbnb. And then you wanted to create a report around you understanding, when people are making their table, someone else to come and book and stay there, right? Now, if your report if the report in that scenario does not help them understand things like, oh, how many houses do we have as at this point, right? How many properties do we have as at this point that people have put in place that people can book? What's the frequency, right, in which, or what's the frequency in which people book at certain periods of the time? A lot of people like to travel during certain months of the year, right? Go on vacation. And during those periods, you want to have people making their houses available for these bookings, in high numbers compared to seasons where you don't have. Though all of those things surround helping that particular report user, better manage the availability of properties and rooms during certain periods. If the report you are creating does not help the user answer all of those questions that tie into that key decision need, you've not really done a very good job with that report, right? So while you're creating your visuals, think about it supporting the user in making those final decisions. And then this last point here is also one of those very interesting points, which is never stick to software defaults, but don't be overly creative. When you create, even if it's in Excel, right? And almost any BI tool or data visualization tool, any tool that you can create a chart with, if you drag one column here, one column there, the software will create something for you, for sure, for 95 or 99% of the time, right? 95 or 99% of the time, the default that the software creates for you is not always going to be the best way for you to communicate that insight or to present. So a lot of always stick to change it with the knowledge of, don't go and start doing creative arts in your report because they said don't take, say, Excel gave me charts with one color blue. I'm a fine artist. You now turn it to 16 colors. No, that's not what we're saying, right? Or Excel gave you one font, but you don't like the font. You now say, my friend I used to do graphics design in secondary school that time. He used to use font. You now go. Now start changing font. Either one font, legend, another font, artist title, another font. Don't bother if you don't default based on common best practices around creating data visualization, but almost never stick to software default. So those are things to consider, in the create phase, right? You're creating your visuals. These are some questions to ask, some things to consider while you are doing that. Now let's move to the other. Structure. It's all about create. You decided the structure, you're putting things inside there now. Now I'm going to make it look more or better. We add what? Design elements. Now there are a few design elements you can add to your reports, right? A few graphic elements you can add to your report. I'm just going to touch on 3, right? That it's almost common to almost every report or every dashboard, right? And then I'll talk about 1 or 2 things that you should take into consideration why you are designing this. Color is not a design element. I've lost me. I've lost myself again. I don't know. MTN is trying to get the better part of this presentation. So please, if you can still hear me,
Yeah. We
just
can hear
triple
you
chat in
clearly. We
say
can
chat in
see
the
your
message.
screen. We can hear you clearly and we can see your screen.
Okay. You can still see my screen. All right, perfect. MTN is trying his best, but God pass MTN. Okay. So color. Now you can argue that color is not a design element, right? In this case, let's just think of it as a design element, right? So color is one of the things you can use in your reports that design elements, but you can also use it to better communicate your insights. And it's very common, especially getting visuals, right? You just want to turn the whole report to graphic design, like poster color, just be dashing rainbow colors everywhere, right? You should use color very, very strategically and something like user needs or user preferences. So I'm just going to talk about a few things around color. When you're making your color choices for your report, sometimes you want to consider what the branding style of your report user is or the report organization, and then you want to decide on a theme. So when you talk about branding, like if you see the WhatsApp report I created, for example, although it's not the report for WhatsApp, but in terms of the theme of the report, I decided to go with WhatsApp dark mode colors. Do you get? If I'm designing a report for my organization, right, I might also decide to use the theme around my what's it called, around the colors or the color theme of my organization in preparing that report. So considering the branding and general theme of your report, to choose appropriate colors. 2, use very few accent colors, or let's call them dominant colors. In almost every report, you don't need to have 4, 5 colors. A lot of times you can do well with just 1 to 2 accent colors. And what are accent colors? Accent colors are those dominant colors that when you see them, they take a lot of attention in the report. If you have too many accent colors, if you have too many dominant colors, you are drawing the attention of the user to so many things, right? So you want to have 1 to 2 accent colors. I mean, look at this presentation, for example, now. The accent color that I've decided to go with here is this, what's it called? That call it orange or blue. Basically, like the theme for most of the posters that has gone out for the master class and started, right? And I just decided to use that color as my accent color for this presentation. Same thing goes for your reports. 1 to 2 accent colors is always fine. And then you now use shades. Or is it shade now? I've forgotten the other name. Or is it tint? If you do finance, you can correct me. But basically, you use lighter versions of that color, right, to complement, your reports. Like in this presentation now, this is one color. This is again, and then the background here is just a lighter version of this color when you add a lot of white to it. So use 1 to 2 accent colors because accent colors draw a lot of attention. Then embrace the use of gray. I know that sometimes when you want to create a report, you have the inclination to dark mode straight up. You want to design your report like the way your phone is looking, dark mode, everything, dark background, this and that. It's fine, right? So trying to master the art of, designing reports that looks visually appealing. Embrace gray, embrace white. Your background, just use a light gray, right, as background, and then use your accent colors to draw attention to the things that you want to. You have black, you have shades of black, right? Embrace those colors that it's very, very difficult for you to go wrong with them, right? Especially in the LCA, why I still trying to understand how to work with colors and everything. So embrace the use of gray, use 1 to 2 accent colors, and then be purposeful and strategic about your use of colors. Don't just use colors anyhow. Use colors to draw attention to key aspects of it, of your dashboard, or to key information that you want the user to pick up. And then accessibility. We have people that have certain visual impairments towards certain colors. In a situation where you are designing reports and some of your reports consumers are those people with that impairment, right? You want to take that into consideration while making your color choices. Now, what are the few resources you can use in deciding the color choices? Because I know that having colors is hard. So one of such websites is colors.co, where it generates a palette for you. They can pick that and then you can use it in your report. We have colorfonts.co, it doesn't work the same thing. We have, color.adobe.com, which is Adobe's version of some of these other things. So these are one of a few websites you can use if you are struggling to decide on a color theme to use for your report, or to brand your report. That's using color to, make your report more presentable. Another design element to consider is icons, right? I think everybody knows that you can use icons to make, because on our phones, we already have a lot of icons for everything. Your app has an icon, the navigation has an icon here, icon there, right? So everyone knows we can use icon, but I tell you, at least for me, when I started, I used icons wrongly, right? And I wouldn't just mention 1 or 2 things regarding the use of icons in your report. The first thing is use consistent icons. Now, what do I mean by consistent icons? When you get icons to use for your report, you have icons that would be so much close to images. You have some that would just look like lines, right? That they don't have so much definition. You can, like, if let's say I'm using an icon to represent a person, the person does not have a beard, right? I cannot see the hair of his nostrils. It's not in the icon. I just have something that outlines the shape of a person, right? So if I'm using something that outlines the shape of a person, don't go and now use another icon that is just everything's just colorful, and then you now use another one that everything is just gray. No, you pick an icon pack, and then use something that is consistent, right, across it. Let your icon be from one family, right? Let everything look, similar. Next point is keep it simple. Don't use icons that have a lot of detail, because icons are not supposed to have a lot of detail. The moment you take an icon that has a lot of detail, right, and then you bring everything down together, you almost be creating something that will take attention on its own. You get. So keep your icons consistent, keep them simple. And this point is they are to support, not replace. If you have an icon that you want to use, let's say you are using it for your KPI and you want to use it to represent revenue, don't because you put icon on your report, on your, let's say on your card visual icon, then your sales value. You now say, the icon is there. Let me remove the name. No. Icons are not supposed to replace text. They're supposed to support, text. So if you have an icon that you're using to, design or communicate something, does not mean that you now take off the text there that you're using to explain that stuff. So icons you use to support, not replace text. And then I have a couple of resources as well. We have the nounproject.com, we have remixicon.com, and we have flaticon.com. So if you go to some of these websites, you'll be able to get that packs of icons. So you know that you just get one icon for revenue that is $sign with everything is green, and then for your, let's say for your what other accounts now, you now go and get some that's just it. Right? So this website, right, you get free icon. I think not everything is families icons. Able to get families of icons. Okay, my network has glitched again, but let's see. Okay, so that's color, that's icons. The last point is fonts. Now, fonts are, I think it's less likely for you to make mistakes with fonts, but just one or two things to consider regarding fonts. First thing is consistency in your font size and your font typeface. Okay, so I just want to another check-in because I don't know. If you just say hi, because I keep getting that my network is unstable. Okay, I think I'm still on. All right. So fonts, right? Be consistent in your font sizes and your font types. If let's say I'm creating a dashboard report that's going to have two pages. If on page one my report, for example, if I go to page two, don't go and use font size 24. No, keep it consistent. If you're going to go with font size 28, go with font size 28 across all your pages. You're going to go with font size 24, go with font size 24 across all your pages. The same thing applies to your charts. If your chart titles are going to be font size 14, keep font size 14 consistent across all your reports. If your legends are going to be font size 8, keep them as font size 8 across every visual, right? Be consistent in the font sizes that you use, right? And then also typeface. What I mean by typefaces, all these you have Times New Roman. Times New Roman is a typeface. We have I'm not even sure that's correct, but bear with me. Times New Roman is a typeface. Calibri is a typeface. Sigo Power BI is a typeface. So basically, if you're going to be using one typeface, right, keep it consistent. Don't use Times New Roman here. Nimala UI there, and you be consistent in your choice of typeface. You pick one at most. You don't need more than one typeface. Let's say two maximum for numbers, right? But most times you just need just one. Keep it consistent across your report. And then this one it's kind of like a preference. Let's say which is I would really like to confirm if you can still hear me because my network is really acting up.
We can hear you. We can hear you on my sales point.
Okay, because I keep getting my network is stable, my network is unstable. Okay. So sans serif fonts. So sans serif fonts. Oh, you can hear me now.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was talking about fonts. Sans serif fonts are fonts that don't have what's it called? Don't have uh, what they call them lines. So let me just quickly show what I mean by sans serif fonts. Can you still see my screen? No. Okay.
No.
Let me share again. Right. So this is what I mean by sans serif fonts. If I just go to this
It's
now,
still coming up.
here I'm using. Oh, it's still coming up. Okay.
Yeah.
Just let me know when it's up.
Not showing.
MTN just wants to take the better parts of this, but we shall forge
Kindly we
on.
share.
No. It's really bad. Oh no. Okay. Is my screen up now?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. I'm gonna try and reshare again. Hmm. Okay. I think let me just see if I can reset my Wi-Fi connection. Or let me know if you can hear me. Or if it's up.
Yeah. I can hear you, but
It's up now.
no. Please, can we see the screen? Okay. They say it's up. Yeah, it's up now. It's up now. It's up now. Hi, Bolaji. Hi, Bolaji.
Yeah, I'm rejoining now.
Okay.
Okay, so am I back now?
Yeah.
I screen up now. I'm gonna try and share my screen again. Okay. Man, this is so bad. Okay, you can see my screen now, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I was talking about fonts, right? I was talking about fonts. So now fonts, um, I said I think it's good to use sans serif fonts when doing presentations or things of this nature, dashboards and things like that. So I was trying to explain what the sans serif font is. If I use something like Times New Roman now, right? This is Times New Roman. Puts it in full screen, right? Now you see the fonts in Times New Roman. It has these lines at the end of it, right? That's what we call that we call serif fonts. So those fonts that don't have these, or just are just curved without those lines at the edge of all these letters. These ones are called where is it? This, yeah. So these ones are called sans serif fonts, and these ones are called serif fonts, right? So most times you don't want to use serif fonts in your reports. You want to use sans serif fonts, right? So that's just by the way, but it's useful to know. And so we've talked about the wireframe phase. We've talked about the create phase, right? We've talked about how to show, what to show, how to show. You've done your wireframing, you put in your elements, your report is ready to go, and you send it off. This is like the last phase in it. At this point now, you've actually already designed your report, right? Your report is now in line with your objectives. It fits your user needs, at least to the best that you can, right? And all your visual elements and everything is there. Now is the point where you now send it out for testing, right? Let your users interact with the report, right? Let them tell you, oh, I think we don't understand what is this here, or I'm not sure what this chart is supposed to mean, right? Let your users interact with the report. Let them walk you through the reports. And I think why that is useful is not necessarily walk you through the reports, but while the person that you've created the report for is using the reports, you sit back and observe how it is that they interact with the reports. Take notes on what it is you can improve on, right? To help them to reduce that time to insight while they're using the report. Do you get? So, or you can also ask them to walk you through the report. Let them explain what it is that they are seeing, right, in the report, and see if that fits what it is that you intended to show with those visuals or with that way of presenting the information. Then take your feedback, evaluate it, and improve your report. I added evaluate it because sometimes some people give you some feedback on some reports and it would like break a lot of in code best practices, right? So sometimes you want to evaluate the feedback. If it's something that is not really going to be a good way, right? Maybe the suggestion may not be the best way. You can try to understand the need behind that suggestion and see if you can provide an alternative way that still meets that need, right? So you take the feedback, you evaluate it, and then you improve your report to better meet their needs. That's like the last phase in the report design process that I'm going to cover. After this phase, you just do what you now start iterating. And that's why I said, well, it's not sequential, right? It's an iterative process. Once you've taken the reports, you've improved, right? You may have, when they give you feedback, you need to go and redefine what the focus, or maybe expand what the focus of the report is going to be. You maybe to now design a new page to answer a report, and then you start the wireframing process again, your deciding on your elements and all of those things, right? So it's not sequential, even though you might go in it sequentially, but it's iterative. More answers in one phase may give you more insights into determining the best approach in another phase, right? To test and improve. And that will be the end of the session for tonight. Now I'll be taking so while I was
Yeah.
going. So
Thank
okay,
you so
Muba, please
much,
take it.
Bolaji. So the question can come in. I think, let me say for my own end, today this is one of my best sessions to be like. I've learned a lot, I've learned a lot. Like, I do battle with report development, and you break everything down, and it's been a good session. So the summary of what I learned though is designing is that. That's summary of what I learned today. Designing is that.
Well, it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. Is that imagine extracting, cleaning, transforming, building model, writing that. I will still now be battling with all this one. God. So easy. So our question can come in. I believe everybody have a lot of questions they want to ask. You can request for Mike. Yeah, we have 15 minutes to end the class. So The question can come in. Yeah.
There's one
Okay.
question in the chat by Yahaya.
Yeah,
I hope
I
I
want
pronounced it
to
as
check
Yahaya.
that too. This person said, I have a question regarding to dashboard design. So by default, Power BI gives you an interface. Is it, let me reference it. So I think it's up here. You will see it in the chat.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay.
Okay, so it says, I have a question regarding dashboard design. So by default, Power BI gives you an interface. You see that the interface is just a visualization ground to use. And then after finishing your visuals, you begin scaling onto the medium. Or can one begin to design the dashboard outline before the visualization? Now, Power BI gives you a report canvas, right? You are not constrained as to what it is that you can put on that canvas, as long as there is a way to create it in Power BI, do it. So you can start first by designing your outline for your dashboard, right? And then adding your visuals to fit the outline or the wireframe which you've created. That's absolutely fine. Or you can create your visuals, start putting things everywhere. And then when you see, oh, I think I need to have something to make this pop, your outlines to the report, right? I'm assuming what you mean by outline and visualization is that whole layout, right? And grid system that I talked about, then your visuals being your chart. So if that's the case, yeah, you can do one before you can do either one before the other, as long as it's still, you know, follows good design guidelines and everything still comes together to it. You can do either one before the other. I hope that answers the question.
So Joy, you can go with your question.
Hello. Hello, Mr. Bolaji. Okay,
Uh,
my question is around where you stated let the information flow from general to specific. Like,
okay.
okay, I have a basic knowledge of Power BI, creating dashboard and all that. But my problem is usually when I'm about to write, tell a story. Like, I don't know how
Mhm.
to create my questions. I don't know how to set up a question. Like, I know where the problem is, but how do I set up the question that it can transcend from general to specific? That is
The
where
specific.
I've always had issue on. So I just needed to throw a little bit of light to how I can go about answering my question so that it can transcend from that general to specific. That is all.
Specific. Okay. Okay. That's fine. So before you mute, can you give me one example of reports that you've tried to create in 30 seconds? Just briefly summarize the reports and see if one or two problems that you wanted to do with the reports. And let's see, and maybe an approach to how you can start thinking about those questions for the story. Right.
Okay, so I'm actually working on a report on insurance, like
Mhm.
vehicle insurance. And the question was we should kind of look for is problems like people that have accidents, amount of women and men that have accident, amount of women and men that have insurance in the company, and amount of cars that are insured and all that. But my problem now is, okay, I've been able to figure out the total amount of policies, total amount of men and women that have these policies, single and married, divorced, widows, and all that, highest and lowest policy. But I don't know how
Mhm.
to like
Now bring
limit
everything
it to,
together into
yes,
one. Okay. All
yes.
right. All
And
right. Fine.
again,
Fine. I get you.
also
I get you.
and also the kind of graph I should use for a specific questions also. Like those are
Okay,
just where I'm
okay.
having a
No,
little
I
bit
don't
of
want those.
challenge.
I don't want. Yeah, I understand. I understand. I don't want to take too much time so that people can ask questions as well. So I'll try to give something that would answer your question and then also give shed light to a couple of other people that may have the same. Now, especially with projects, right? They are in their own a big step. If you remember, while I was talking about the report design phase, I talked about the what to and the how to. And in the what to, I talked about two things. I said, well, research and define. Now, if you're going to be working with data in industry or in a space that you don't know so much about, the first, even if someone has said, create this, create that, create this, create that, you need to understand the context behind what it is that they've actually create. And so the first thing is to go and research. Go and read about what the insurance industry is like. Go and read about what the metrics is. Go and read about what the typical objective of an insurance industry is. What is it that insurance industry are trying to do? Are they trying to sell policies? Are they trying to minimize risk? Are they trying to increase profits, right? Try and see what it is that the insurance industry or people in the insurance space are concerned about. See how much of that your data can answer, right? And then once you understand what it is that they do, you're able to at least bring out some common problems from what it is that is required and see, okay, I understand at the high level what these guys are doing. And these are some of the metrics that they are trying to monitor, right? Then from these two, I can write out specific problems that they may be trying to face. Then I see if my data has, if I have enough data that I can get to those kind of questions. And then once you do that, right, you start to understand what it's like to be in that space. So once you understand a few about the space, you write down a few problem statements. You cannot put yourself in the persona or in the shoes of someone in that industry and say, okay, if I working in an insurance company and I know that one of the objectives is this, what are the things that I will be trying to do? And what are the things that I would want to know so that I can take XYZ action? And those things start to help you think about what could be, what is possible and what is not possible, and what analysis to do, right? So a lot of the block that you're facing now is because you don't understand the context of the data, you don't understand the context of the industry. So go back, research about the industry, understand what it is, what is their pain points, and then come back to use your data to answer it and better understand what is the guidelines that you've been given. I think that's what I
Yeah,
can
it's
say on
very
that. I hope it
helpful.
helps.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, Sulaiman, you can go, you can speak now.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mubarak. Thank you, Mr. Bolaji. We appreciate you. It's such a wonderful session with you. My question is regarding how to use chat. I think
Mhm.
for me, of course, I'm not a data analyst already. I'm just learning, you understand? And all I've been doing with dashboard is practicals from videos I watch. I took a course recently on Allison. So what I just try to do is replicate what the dashboard that the lady built. But then there is always this question, like I always want to find an answer to that. Why do I have to use this dashboard for this particular, part of the reports? Why, if I'm using a bar chart, you mentioned something like that, but I would love you to, I would love
Yeah.
like if you can shed more light, or if there's any resource to help us, understand charts better, the relevant charts
Okay.
for
Okay.
use for all
Very
these
good.
reports.
Yeah. Thank you for that
Before you
question.
before
Right.
you go on, Bolaji, please hold on. Before you go on,
Okay.
Sulaiman, if you check our recent class, I think that was on Monday or Friday. I think that's the 8th or the 7th. So we covered the application of charts there, as in how we can use that. I think you're in that class, right?
Oh, I think I was not present. I'm not sure if I was
Okay,
present.
so you can go through that because we use a whole session for that day to cover
Wow. All right.
the usage of those charts where you can use it. So then, Bolaji, you can go on
Okay.
there now. So if you check the resources, they will actually go because we've covered that before.
Okay. Great. I think that's good news. I was actually going to say that I'm pretty sure at some point during the master class that would have been covered. But basically, just to give you one or two other things is understanding what charts to use. You really have to read about, data visualization principles and, how each chart fits into specific kinds of data, right? So if you have data of certain types, right, of maybe geographic data, or you have data that's numerical or categorical, there are certain visualization options that fit those kind of data because of some attribute of that type of visual, right? And so to not go too deep into that, the best thing I would just say is pick a book or a resource or a guide on visualization, right? And learn about, charts, learn about grammar of charts, right? And understand how each chart fits into different data types, different purposes, and all of those things. I'm pretty sure at some point someone would have recommended, this book, I forget the name now, by Cole, which is
Netflix, yeah. Storytelling
yeah,
with
I
data.
don't know,
Yeah.
storytelling with
I
data.
think I
Thank
put
you.
it. I'll put it.
Right.
I'll put it in the resources for their when I send them notes tomorrow.
Yeah, so
So I'll put
storytelling
all
with
those
data is
resources
one.
there.
Please do.
And
I would like to read that, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
another
So
another book. I know that I have a couple of other books that are also helpful. There is one by a professor of economics, which is I forget, John Schwabish. The book is better I think better data presentations, right, which also covers that. There are a lot of books, let's just say, on data visualization, but just find one, right? The storytelling with data is a very good one. Find one, read it, understand how charts work, and then from there, you yourself would see charts and say, oh, I understand why they use this, because of that. So yeah.
yeah, thank you for that. So Matthew, I think we have you next. You can go on. We have 4 minutes left, and we can only take one person after this. So Matthew, you can speak.
Sorry, Mr. Bolaji. Sorry, if you want to create a question like insight, is it advisable for us to use ChatGPT? Because sometimes I would draft my question out. Okay, this question, this is what I want to insight, I want to work on. But when I check ChatGPT as maybe something, it would draft another question out. Like, is it advisable to use the tool or just use your own question? That is it.
Use AI to your advantage. AI is here to help us. So if you're going to use, you can't use ChatGPT. Sorry, you can use ChatGPT, right? Use it to generate those questions, right? You can. There's nobody says you must always use. Nobody says you must always use only your own head. Use AI. Use natural
API is to
intelligence.
your
Use artificial
advantage. Oh.
intelligence.
That's why it is for your productivity.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and then if Jessica, I think this is our last person before we go. Uh, Jessica, you can speak.
Okay. Thank you very much, BJ, for the wonderful lecture tonight. I really learned a lot. Like if you see my comments, I was like, this is a beautiful business analyst interview question. Like if you're able to expatiate on the use of on the importance of what a dashboard is and you're able to trash it this way, I think it's a plus. Secondly, you said that we must that dashboard is necessary when you want to report or yeah, when you want to make reports on your analysis and some other important things as well. Sorry, I'm bringing you back, but I'm just an Oliver Twist. I had to go back to that question. What are the other important things that need to be added to a dashboard when you're making your reports, or when you're making your report, when you're analyzing your reports?
Okay. All right. So I'll start from the statement. You said, I just said that what is necessary. Necessary means that you must use it. No. That is important, right? But not the only important thing. So you can use a dashboard to communicate your insights, but you are not restricted to only using the dashboard, right?
Yeah.
A report, for example, is another way where you can communicate your insight. And in a report, maybe a couple of pages what is with a lot of text, right, to provide context. For most dashboards, a dashboard may just be a page or a couple of pages that is going to on in this of Power BI now on this on Power BI, and someone is going to log in every time, right? But
Yeah.
the insight that's going to be communicated from that dashboard will be something that you've prepared beforehand, and then they go there and they see, and then data is updated. But you could do an ad hoc analysis to get some. You could do an ad hoc analysis on that. You don't have to prepare. When I say have, that means it's not necessary that the visual output that you're going to use to present your result. You write up support it with visuals, right? You prepare a two-page document that you send off to your boss or to your colleague and say, oh, I did this, is what I found. They read through, that's one way. It could be maybe you are creating something that is public facing, for example. A blog post could be a way to communicate, the insight of what you've investigated. So dashboard is one, right? All of these other things are different ways to communicate. Someone recently, I think Jessica, yes, quoted a tweet by analysis that was done with Uber where they analyzed, I forget what the context was now, but something around Uber shop, and it was more or less a blog, an article, I should say, right? Where they're walking through the analysis. There was a lot of text, there were a lot of visuals to support
Yeah,
that text and all of those things.
I
It's not a
think
dashboard.
Uber Canada reports like something.
Yeah,
I went to it
exactly.
yesterday. Yeah,
Exactly. So it was not a dashboard, right? It was like an
dashboard or a
article. So
report. Yeah,
dashboard is
report
one
writing.
way of communicating results. Okay. That's what I was trying to say. I
Yeah,
hope it
and
helps.
last question here. This person said, please, can you talk about
Thank you.
recommendations when building a report?
No, you're welcome. Okay. Recommendations when building a report. Now, I think if you're going to recommend something when building a report, then your recommendation will probably be tied to what it is that you sought out to investigate with your analysis, right? If the analysis, let's say it was an exploratory analysis, even if it's an exploratory analysis, when you start out exploring the data, you start to think of a path that you want to follow through, right? To see whether there will be some insight there. And so if you're going to be giving recommendations are going to be from what it is that you found in your data. I'll give you an example. Let's say as a business, we are looking to expand. We are looking to expand our business and include a new product line, right? Or let's say, okay, let's say we are operating three product categories, for example, and in these product categories, let's say we have housing, we have electronic devices, and we have children wear, right? Housing, electronic devices, children wear. And we want to bring in new product line under one of these categories, but we're not sure which product line should we do. Your analysis could be, oh, go and figure out what the profitability of, each product line under these product categories are, and give us a recommendation on what product category that we can increase the product line on, for example, right? In that case, the focus is what are we going to do? What's the product line we're going to add? And so your analysis will go in that route. Your recommendation will also probably go in that route in suggesting, oh, this is the product line I think we should do because A, because B, because C, because D. The answers to all this because A, because B, because C, because D is going to be the insight that you found while you were analyzing your data. So your recommendations are always what it is you found. Or most times will be what it is you found and how it ties to what it is your problem statement is for your report or for your analysis and all of that. Okay. I hope that answers your question. Okay, I'm Biden.
Yeah. I think this is up for today, and yeah, this is up for all we have for today. So thank you so much, Bolaji. Thank you for having us. Thank you